Okay, my friends, this is about as deep a dive as you can possibly get, and I don't think anybody has considered this possibility in thousands of years. But Hesiod was 800 BC. He was the first one to write about anything. And what happened was the daughters of Zeus came upon Hesiod as he was tending his sheep up on the mountain somewhere, I can't remember where, but somewhere in the Middle East there. And they told him they wanted him to write books. And he said, I can't write. They said, oh yeah, you're going to write. And he wrote a lot of books. Now the crazy thing is, that's exactly what happened to Muhammad. Jibril came to Muhammad and said, I'm going to have you write some books. He says, I can't write. He said, oh yeah, you're going to write. And he did. Now, this was about the gods. They told him, these are the daughters of Zeus, who was the primary god of Earth at this particular time. They related the story of the history of Earth and the sky, and Uranus was the son of Earth, Gaia. All right? Uranus was the sky, and he was the son of Earth, which was Gaia. But afterwards, he lay with his own mother and had by her Cronus, which was the one that ate his own children. The giants, the cyclopses, all this stuff came forth from this unauthorized union. The way it's written in the ancient text is that Earth, by herself, decided to start a system, and that's not allowed. You have to be balanced. You have to have two things. They call them archons, I think is it. And what they are is, you know, hot has to have cold. Up has to have down. Hot, hard is soft. All those, and there's like 24 different archons that have to be paired. And Gaia, or whoever it was that was the primary deity here on Earth, they call her Sophia, Pistis Sophia, whatever. This primary god decided just going to start all by herself. And then it just turned into a disaster, and then you had monsters and dragons and nothing but war and hatred and just absolute horrendous stuff. And now we're going to talk about what makes up all of this stuff, the sky, the Earth, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus. Well, we know Uranus is a planet. Well, Earth we know is a planet, which is Gaia. Saturn, Mars, all of those were gods, every one of them. So we're going to get deep. Get deep, deep, deep. And now we're talking about Ovid, too. So Ovid is the one. Hesiod and Ovid, those are the two that you want to look into. Ovid was at the turn of the millennia. He was right about 0 AD, right in that area. And Hesiod, though, was 800 BC. So he was the one that really knew everything, because he was being instructed by the daughters of God, who was Zeus. And this is what this is going to get a little touchy for some people, because Zeus, who ruled over this system, was the god that went against God Almighty. All right, we all know that they said they came down, they had sex with all the women, they were just partying like animals, and he was the god of that group. It appears to me. Now, I could be totally wrong about this, but I don't think so. That's what they're saying. We know that there was a bad god, Satan, whatever you want to call him, and he took over the earth, and they had sex with all the women, and created just gigantic giants. That's what all this is about. That's what all this is about. Okay, once again, I think this is going to get touchy for a lot of people, but I present material evidence of what was written, and then I try to see if it makes any sense to me, and I relate this to Revelations, and I'll tell you why in a second. Now, as I said, Kronos would eat all of the children that Rhea had, all of the male children, and because he was told that he was going to be overthrown by one of his children, his male children. So he would eat them, and he was eating them all. And Rhea was really upset, so she hid out in Crete, and when she was big with Zeus, in other words, she was fully pregnant, she brought him forth in the cave at Dicere. She gave him to the Curetes, to the nymphs Adriatis and Ida, daughters of Nileus, to nurse. Now, then according to Hesiod, there's a couple of little points where this isn't completely agreed upon. In the ancient times, it says, the wavering of tradition on this point is indicated by Apollodorus, who, while he calls the mountain Dicte, names one of the gods' nurses, Ida. So there's a little bit of controversy about this, but there's no controversy about Zeus not being eaten. Rhea gave Kronos a rock wrapped up in a swaddling cloth. He just swallowed it down. I mean, these things were gigantic. However, here's the key. They could make any form they wanted to. Zeus could turn himself into a mouse if he wanted. He could turn himself into... Every god you see looks like a male model. They're all gods because they wanted to be perfect. They could come down and be perfect as they wanted to be. They never gained weight. They were never skinny. They were just perfect. So, and that's why they came down. They saw the women look pretty hot. So they figured, well, they come down, they get all buffed up, and then they just have a party with them. And that's what they did. And that's why they went against God Almighty. Now, then they had the giants. Then they had all these cyclopses and monsters and all kinds of crazy things. So Zeus himself, who was the god, and he was also Jupiter. He was at the planet Jupiter. He decided, I'm going to shoot a comet out there and destroy all the stuff that's on Earth. And he did. That's when they had the Great Flood. Venus was born from Zeus. And this is all written as Zeus bore Venus, which was a fiery comet at the time, and it almost hit Earth. It destroyed the Earth. Oh, I've gone over that 100 times. I'll keep going over it another 100 times until people understand it. Velikovsky wrote all of the ancient texts that were recorded all around the world. He went everywhere and accumulated them and studied them and made a list of them. He said the Incas said this, the Asians said this, the people on these islands said this, and the people had no way of knowing each other, had the same stories, the same time frame, 1500 BC. We almost got impacted by an extremely fiery comet. The oceans, all the rivers and lakes literally boiled. And that's what created all the mud fossils. That's where I came in. And I realized all of these things died at the same time. They're all flat as a pancake on one side. And they're perfectly preserved. And then I came down and I figured out the process of this hot water flood and nucleophilic substitution, the chemistry, causing feldspar, which is the coating of collagens, to turn hard like a rubber bag to coat whatever's ever inside, and that became basalts and all kinds of other things. So bones themselves turned into stones, but inside they're basalt, outside they're feldspar. Same thing with my goose, Caesar. All right, there's his feathers, there's his collagen outside, there's his basalt inside, there's his neck. All right, there's his feathers, it's Caesar Augustus. All right, so I'm on this thing pretty hot and heavy, so let's just keep going. Okay, here we have Mars, and then we have the moons of Mars, which is Phobos, which is that one, and this little one here is Deimos. Now, this is from NASA, University of Arizona, and I've been trying to contact them with all my information for years now. They refuse to engage. Hard to understand how they could be doing research and refusing to engage. See this? Fear, panic, and excitement, a close encounter with a mysterious moon. And this is Phobos. And here's Phobos right there. Now, that is a body part, and so is its partner Deimos. But we're going to have to go deep into this, because all the planets were creatures, or are body parts of creatures. And every culture basically talked about this. I mean, the Norse and all, they all talked about this happening. That these are parts of bodies and gods and so forth. That's all I can tell you. I know it sounds just totally insane. I sound like I'm right off the wall crazy, but I am looking at things and presenting what I see. You make your determination from there. I've already made mine. Well, I suppose if we're going to get into the gods, you're going to have to understand the moons and all of the planets, everything, they were gods. Phobos is the god and personification of fear and panic in Greek mythology. All right, now let's go see what Phobos is. Phobos is one of Mars' moons. That's the black blood, that's the red blood. This looks to me like a tendon enthesis. I'm not certain, but I can guarantee you that was alive at one time, and it is a body part. Okay, this is another moon of Mars, which is Deimos, meaning personal god of dread and terror in Greek mythology. He was the brother of Phobos. You see that? I'm pretty sure it's a kidney. And this right here is this right here. This one died in the flood and is flat, and also pushed flat here. See a flat surface? They died and they ended up like this. But this would have been virtually exactly the same. And I think this might actually be that on the side. They had entryways and exits and blood vessels and all that stuff. Now this is Deimos. Now I'm not sure whether it's here or here, but we're going to be looking in the microscope right into, whoops, let me back this out. That's the attachment spot for, which I believe is that what I just showed you is also the same organ as what we're looking at there. It's Deimos. Now, what are we looking at? What am I saying I'm looking at? We're looking at this right here. You see it? That's the entryway into, I believe, like I said, a kidney. And all of this white stuff around here is the fabric that attached that tube into that spot. Now, can you see that? I hope so. Sometimes you have to back way away to see things better. You see it? You see this? This is the moon Iapetus. This is equatorial ridge. That's from a tendon enthesis. All of those are the little anchors that hold these entheses in place, because they are the anchors for tendons. You see that? That's the tendon enthesis. It has all that wrinkly looking stuff. They break right there, because that's the abrupt transition. These tendon balls are everywhere in your body. They're little enthesis anchors. You have to anchor all of your muscles or they pull right out of you. Now this is Tethys. This is another one of the moons, and there's the anchor for that. It broke right off. Again, it has all that marbly looking stuff because it's anchored into flesh. There you go right there. There's another one, Mimas. That's the anchor strap. Would have come straight out of here. These are all the little gnarly things that hold it in place. Alright, they're all over Earth too. That's a tendon ball and the top is broken off, but this is where the blood comes in and out. I'll just run through a bunch of them because they're huge. This is a tendon ball right there. That's the strap. It runs up where it pulled from. There was another one right here. You see that one right there? That's the core of it. It probably came right down to this one and broke off, or it might have come to that one, I don't know. But that guy better be careful or they're going to come through the top and get hurt. This is, I don't know what that is. I'm not sure that's, well, I don't know what it is. This one here, this is from a tendon enthesis. Oh, I'm sorry. This is from a ligament. And the bottom ligament attaches to the top one. It's similar to what you would see if this had another bone attached to it. You see that socket right there? That ball would be in that socket. There'd be another bone up here, and this little thing would connect it to here. That's why it's so tough. They have to be tough to move them back and forth like this. So that goes down here. Underneath there's going to be another ball like this, very similar to that. Same thing that this would have been. Alright, let's just go back. I'll go through another couple of them here. These are their little balls coming out of the walls. Same thing. These are in China. They're everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere because all the whole world is made of this stuff. Some more of them there. That's an abrupt transition from where the tendon's locked in. This is really glue, and this little tendon is a gluey spot. Somebody sent me that one. There's tendon balls glued to something there. That's the eggshell style. There's all different styles. These are nothing more than tendon fibers. Same thing with those. Could be muscle. They have a very similar look. Alright, this is what they look like on the ends. Did I show you this one? These right here. You see them? And they go down, and down below at the other end of here is that balls, those balls. Every one of these has a ball. I mean, it's just incredible how many balls there are around the world. It's a world full of balls. Anyway, I don't see any reason to go any much further. Oh, there should be one here. The one with the ring around it, Iapetus. I have other ones in here somewhere that show Iapetus, but I got so much stuff it's going to take me forever to find it. Alright, here's one very similar to Iapetus. That's where the strap would have come in, and that's the ridge. You see how there's a whole batch of different styles? One of them look like an eggshell, one after the other. These have like little pockets and squares in them. And I'm sure they're for different locations in the body. And some of them maybe have to move around a little bit. And some of them are like these balls here. They look like they're just solid as hell. And this one here, these pockets are normal. Those pockets are built into these things. Here's one that Lee Simpson sent me, a buddy of mine, and it's all eroded out. And there's all those pockets in there. So they were big, they were small, they were medium, they were all kinds of things. But in us, these things would be so small you couldn't see them. You couldn't even see them. You see that? That's in skin. You see that white stuff? That's skin. And they're all over the place up here. They're everywhere. Because your skin has to be able to stretch and move and then come back. And there was a strap there. The straps erode. These don't erode. They're tough. Now, if my claim is all this stuff is alive, I damn well better have evidence, and I do. This is what's underneath your skin. This is the skin or mucosa when it's on organs and so forth. And then below it you have this fabricy, webby, sort of stretchy thing. And all these balls are anchors. Those anchors hold this so you can stretch and move and do all these things and remain pliable, and you come back to where you started from because of these balls. You see this? That's on Earth. That's on Earth. And it is exactly identical to interstitium because it is interstitium. That is the mucosal layer or skin. This is the interstitial layer, and it is eroded because it's on the shore of the United Kingdom. I believe it's Hunstanton Beach or cliffs or something like that. And these are the balls that have eroded away. And this mud is from the flesh. The flesh is mud now. You see this? This is exact. There's no difference. Now, in microscopic shots, this is this. That right there is this. And it's very microscopic. You see, it starts out here, and then closer in, you can see this is the same spot, and then you can see all these are balls. And then even closer, you can see that it's all webbed in the fabric, and these balls are the things that hold it. And that's all over the Earth. So I do have some evidence. I have excellent evidence. And this is what they call the Moki marbles. And guess where these are also? On Mars. These are those interstitium balls, the same as these, only all the mud has eroded away, and there's the basement layer of skin underneath. This is some organs from whatever that creature was. This is out in Utah. Now, let's go look at Mars. Okay, I just showed you the Moki marbles. These are the Mars blueberries. They're identical. It's the same material because it was from a creature that had interstitium balls. And this is the basement layer. And this is on Mars. And here's some more from Mars. That right there is called the Mars Morse code. The erosion on Mars is different than Earth. These balls right here are the interstitium balls. These are the straps, and this is squinched together here, and this is stretched and pulled here, obviously. Now, on Mars, look at the surface. Here on Earth, you end up with mud. On Mars, you end up with this. It erodes because of like a sandstorm, basically. And that's what you get, is this kind of an effect. You don't have the mud. It doesn't turn into mud. Okay, here's one last one from Mars. This is the Mars crab. You see this here? And they have all these little legs sticking out. And I say, whoa, what the hell is that? Well, I know exactly what it is. It is an artery. These are the blood vessels coming out from the artery to service this tissue, which is muscle. That is a vein, comes back up. These are sarcomeres. These little blocks, you see, this is a blow up of this spot right here. So this is what it looks like down in here. These are all little blocks of sarcomeres. The very thin layers that you see all here is connective tissue. The stuff that has bled out of that was the red muscly stuff that pulled these connective tissues together to make your muscles work. They're called sarcomeres. Okay, so let's talk about something that was a disaster in the scholarly realm. They destroyed Immanuel Velikovsky for writing this book that was the history written by all of the ancients about this disaster in the 15th century BC. Here's the story. Worlds and Collisions is a book by Immanuel Velikovsky, a hero. Published in 1950, the book postulates that around the 15th century BC, the planet Venus was ejected from Jupiter's red spot as a comet or a comet-like object passed near to Earth. It says an actual collision is not mentioned, and apparently it did not collide. The object allegedly changed Earth's orbit and axis, causing innumerable catastrophes, which I have elaborated on very extensively. These catastrophes that are mentioned in early mythologies and religions from all around the world. The book has been heavily criticized, a work of pseudoscience catastrophism. Many of its claims are completely rejected by the established scientific community as they are not supported by any available evidence. Well, let me tell you something. I am supporting them by a lot of available evidence. Now, there was two serious events. The first one was around the 15th century BC when Jupiter ejected Venus. Then, in the 8th and 7th century BC, Mars was displaced by Venus. That's what killed Mars. It killed it. It just literally killed it. And it made a close approach to Earth. This incident caused a new round of disturbances and disasters on Earth. After that, the current celestial order, where everybody has its own pathway, was established. The courses of the planets stabilized over the centuries, and Venus gradually became a normal planet that just was going around. But originally, it was going in and out of everybody else's orbits, and it came very close to Earth, caused two disasters on Earth, and killed Mars. That's my claim, and that's what he claimed. Okay, like I say, there'll be people that are get real upset for all kinds of reasons. Now, if you don't believe there's space and the Earth is flat and all that stuff, you're in the wrong place. Because I do this stuff. I understand pretty well about the universe now, and I believe these gods were actually here, and they actually could do the things they said. They could turn themselves into mushrooms and ants and rivers and planets. They had that capability, and apparently they were immortal, so somewhere they're hanging around somewhere. But anyway, I'm going to let this finish up with my hero, Immanuel Velikovsky, and here it goes.
All in all, a score of Dr. Velikovsky's predictions have been verified, and the opposition within the scientific community has abated. New voices are being heard. For instance, that of Lloyd Motz, professor of astronomy at Columbia University, who, while he still disagrees with Velikovsky, says his predictions should be recognized and his writings should be carefully studied and analyzed because they are the product of an extraordinary and brilliant mind and are based on some of the most concentrated and penetrating scholarship and research of our period.
All right, well, there you have it. And they are very, very detailed. And he went to literally all the museums and libraries and carvings and statues and oral traditions of everywhere in the world. The Incas, the Mayas, the Norse, the Asians, everyone. And they all had the same story. So he was still destroyed, and they still never let up on him. He's saying that it had baited, well, they just shut up and left him in the woods. And they just never came back to him to listen to him. So it's highly unlikely you've ever heard of him unless you heard of him from me. You're never going to hear him from your professors. Now, it's time that we change that and we start to engage in an open forum of dialogue about what these ancient things were recorded to be. Because I have the evidence now. He's saying there was no evidence. Well, there's plenty of evidence now. I have so much evidence I have it coming out of my ears. And the only ones that can't see it are the highly educated. PhDs. Perfectly happy deluded.